There is a particular feeling that comes with opening a budgeting app you haven't touched in 3 weeks. A small, familiar dread. Not panic, just that quiet heaviness of knowing that things have drifted again. That the category you were so careful about in week 1 has somehow overflowed by week 3. That the organized, intentional version of your financial life that felt so possible on the first of the month has quietly come apart at the seams. Most of us know this feeling. We are not people who don't care about money. We care enormously. We care enough to download the apps, to watch the videos, to start the spreadsheets, to have the honest conversations with ourselves in the shower about what we need to change. The caring is not the problem. The problem is that the systems we've been given require us to be different people than we actually are. More disciplined, more consistent, more immune to the ordinary pressures and exhaustions of daily life. And then we meet the Japanese approach. And something shifts. Because the Japanese don't organize their budgets through willpower. They organize them through habit. Through small, repeated behaviors that become so woven into daily life that they stop requiring effort. The budget stays clean not because someone is forcing it to stay clean, but because the habits that produce cleanliness have become as natural as making coffee in the morning. There are 6 of these habits, and none of them will ask you to be a different person. They will only ask you to do small things, consistently, until those small things become the person you already are. Let's begin. The first habit is one that Japanese households have practiced for generations, and it has a name so simple it almost sounds like a child's rule. Sonohi ni seiri, organize on the day. It means, essentially, that financial information does not get saved for later. Receipts are not stuffed into pockets to deal with at the end of the month. Transactions are not left unexamined until the bank statement arrives. Whatever happened with money today is acknowledged today, while the memory is fresh and the details are accurate. This is the foundational habit of every clean budget in Japanese culture. And it is the one that, once broken, causes every other system to eventually collapse. Think about dishes. If you wash the dishes immediately after eating, the whole thing takes 4 minutes. The food hasn't dried, the pan hasn't bonded with whatever you cooked in it. The task is simple and over quickly. But if you leave the dishes for tomorrow, and then the day after, and then until the weekend, something changes. The task is no longer 4 minutes. It is 20. And more than the time, the emotional weight of the undone thing has been quietly accumulating the whole time. Adding a small, invisible tax to every moment you walked past the kitchen and thought, I still need to do that. Your budget works exactly the same way. 1 unrecorded receipt is nothing. 7 unrecorded receipts from the past 2 weeks, sitting in a pile somewhere, requiring you to reconstruct what you spent and when and why. That is a different task entirely. And the emotional cost of the pile, the avoidance, the vague anxiety, the sense that things have already gotten away from you, is often what kills the entire attempt. Sonohi ni seiri says, don't let the pile form, not because you are obsessive, because you are kind to your future self. In practice, this looks like taking 2 minutes at the end of each day, not the end of the week, not Sunday night, each day, to do one simple thing. Look at what you spent, not analyze it, not judge it, just look. Where did money go today? Write it down, or record it, or photograph the receipt. Close the loop while it is still easy to close. The Kakeibo, the Japanese household budget journal that has been used since 1904 when journalist Hani Motoko introduced it to help Japanese women manage household finances, is built entirely on this daily rhythm. Not the monthly review, the daily glance. The small, consistent acknowledgement that today happened and money was part of it, and that matters enough to take 2 minutes. Try this. Tonight, before you sleep, open your wallet or your banking app and name, out loud or in writing, every transaction from today. Just name them, not judge them. That 2-minute practice, done every night for 30 days, will change the quality of your relationship with your budget more than any app or spreadsheet ever could. The second habit comes from a concept in Japanese aesthetics and daily life called katazuke, often translated as tidying, but carrying a meaning that goes deeper than physical organization. Katazuke is the practice of returning things to their designated place before moving to the next thing. It is the principle behind the famous Japanese approach to tidying, but it applies with equal elegance to money. In a financial context, katazuke means that every yen, every dollar, every unit of income has a designated place to go, and it goes there before anything else happens. Not when it's convenient, not when there's enough left over. First. This is structurally different from the way most Westerners manage money, which follows a simple and deeply flawed pattern. Income arrives, life happens, savings receives whatever is left, which in most months is very little or nothing at all. Because life always expands to fill the available space. The expenses find the money, always, before the savings do. Because savings is passive and expenses are active. Katazuke reverses this. Income arrives, and the first movement, before anything else, is to return money to its designated place. An amount for savings, an amount for regular obligations, an amount for the expenses of this month. Each category receives what it is meant to receive in the order it is meant to receive it before the month has a chance to redirect everything. Think about a river delta. A river that has no banks, no designated channels, spreads across the land in 1,000 small rivulets, none of them deep enough to sustain anything. But a river with banks goes somewhere. It has force. It carves a valley. The banks don't diminish the river, they give it direction and depth. Katazuke applied to income is building those banks, not restricting the flow, directing it. The most effective version of this habit is automation, which is also the most Japanese version of it. The system runs without requiring daily willpower. A fixed percentage, it can be as small as 3%, as large as 30%, whatever the reality of your life allows, moves to savings automatically on the day income arrives. It never sits in the checking account waiting to be allocated. It has already been returned to its place. Japanese households that practice this often use the kakeibo principle of dividing income into 4 envelopes: needs, wants, culture, and unexpected. Not as a rigid budget, but as a katazuke, a first placement of money into its designated home before the month begins to make its demands. Try this. Identify one financial category, savings, an emergency fund, a specific goal, and set up an automatic transfer for an amount so small it feels almost irrelevant. Not the amount you think you should save, the amount you know, honestly, you can move without feeling it. Even $10, even $25. Let Katazuke do its work quietly before the month has a chance to intervene. The third habit is where the Japanese approach begins to diverge most sharply from Western financial culture and where the potential for genuine peace becomes most visible. It is called Ma-no-yosan, which you could translate as the budget of empty space, and it is built on the same principle of Ma that appears in Japanese architecture, music, and garden design. The understanding that empty space is not wasted space, it is breathing space. In most Western budgeting frameworks, the goal is to account for every dollar. Every category is filled, every allocation is maximized. The budget is considered successful when there is nothing unassigned. This feels responsible, it feels thorough, it feels like control. But here is what it actually is, a system with no tolerance for reality, because life does not stay inside categories. The car makes a noise it didn't make last week. The child needs something the budget didn't anticipate. The utility bill spikes in the coldest month of the year. A friend's birthday arrives and you want to be generous. These are not budget failures, they are life, and a budget with no empty space cannot accommodate life without breaking. And every time the budget breaks, something worse than the financial disruption happens. The confidence breaks. The feeling that I can do this gets replaced, once again, by the feeling that I'm just not someone who is good with money. And so the attempt ends again, and the cycle continues. Ma-no-yosan says, build the empty space in deliberately, not as sloppiness, as architecture. A Japanese garden always includes empty space, raked gravel, open ground between stones, negative space that gives the eye somewhere to rest and the garden somewhere to breathe. The empty space is not where the design failed. It is where the design succeeds, because without it, there is only density. And density, no matter how beautiful each individual element, becomes overwhelming. Your budget needs that gravel. A percentage, even 5%, even 3%, that is designated as unallocated, not earmarked for anything. Available for the unexpected, the human, the alive parts of a month that cannot be planned. This is not an emergency fund, though it serves a similar function. An emergency fund is a long-term reservoir. Ma-no-yosan is monthly breathing room, the space that makes the budget elastic instead of brittle. When you build Ma into your budget, the first time something unexpected happens and you can cover it without panic, without going into debt, without robbing another category, without feeling like the whole system has failed, something profound occurs. You realize the budget is not fragile, it is resilient. And that realization changes your relationship with it permanently. But if that reframes how you think about empty space in your finances, what comes next will shift something even deeper, because it moves from what you plan to how you see. Try this. In your next monthly budget, add one line that says simply, unallocated. Give it a small amount, not large enough to feel like waste, not so small it's meaningless. And when the month ends, review what happened to it. Notice whether the month felt different because of it. The fourth habit is one of the most ancient financial practices in Japanese culture, and it has survived for so long because it addresses the most common source of budget chaos in a way that no app or category system ever quite can. It is called okane no nagare o miru, watching the flow of money. Not tracking money, watching it. The difference is significant. Tracking is about recording transactions so you can analyze them later. Watching is about maintaining a continuous, present-tense awareness of where money is in its journey through your life, where it came from, where it is now, where it is going. It is less like accounting and more like navigation. In the Edo period, Japanese merchants kept what were called daifukucho, great fortune ledgers, that were updated not at the end of the month but throughout the day, in real time, as transactions occurred. The ledger was always current. The merchant always knew at any moment the exact state of the flow. Not because they were anxious, but because a merchant who didn't know the state of the flow was like a sailor who didn't know where the wind was coming from. Most of us experience money the way you experience a river from the air. You can see that it exists, you can see roughly where it's going, but the details are blurred and distant. Okane no Nagare wo Miru brings you down to the bank, to sit with the water, to feel the current, the speed, the depth, to know the river the way someone knows it who has lived beside it for years. Think about your last month of spending. Without looking at any records, just from memory, can you name the 3 largest expenses? Can you name what you spent on food in total? Can you describe the moment when money moved unexpectedly, when something happened you didn't plan for? If those questions feel difficult or blurry, it is because the flow has been happening without your attention. The river has been running and you have been away from the bank. Okane no Nagare wo Miru is a weekly practice, not daily, not monthly. Once a week, for no more than 15 minutes, you sit with your money and you watch the flow. Not to judge it, not to punish yourself for where it went, to know it, to be present to it, to maintain the kind of continuous, calm awareness that means money never surprises you in ways that create crisis. The Japanese housewives who developed and refined the kakebo practice over more than a century understood that financial peace is not achieved by aggressive management. It is achieved by attentive relationship. The wife who kept the household ledger, the shufu, was not a bookkeeper. She was a steward, someone who knew the flow, respected the flow, and shaped it gently rather than fighting it. Try this. This week, set aside 15 minutes, not at the end of the month, this week, to sit with your recent transactions and simply observe them. No judgment, no planning, no fixing. Just look at the flow of the last 7 days the way you'd watch a river, with curiosity and without alarm. What do you notice? The 5th habit is perhaps the most quietly radical of all 6 because it asks you to do something that most modern financial culture considers the opposite of responsible. It is called yukuri tsukao, spend slowly. Not spend less, spend slowly. The distinction matters enormously. Spending less is about quantity. It is a subtraction, a removal, a discipline that involves holding back. Spending slowly is about time. It is about the pace at which money moves, about the space between the desire and the decision, about the quality of attention present at the moment money changes hands. In Japan, particularly in the context of traditional commerce, there is a deep respect for the act of purchase. The customer who enters a small shop and takes time to consider, to ask questions, to hold the object, to decide thoughtfully, this customer is respected. The purchase is honored. The transaction is not just an exchange of money for goods. It is a moment of genuine deliberation about what has value and why. Compare this to the experience of modern online shopping. The frictionlessness is the entire design. One click, item saved from last time, payment already on file, delivered tomorrow. The system has been engineered to reduce the time between wanting and having to the smallest possible interval, because every second of deliberation is a second in which you might decide not to buy. The speed is not for your benefit, it is against it. Yukuri Tsukao restores the space that modern commerce removes. It introduces deliberation not as a burden, but as a form of respect for the money you've earned, for the object you're considering, for the life you're trying to build with both. It's like the Japanese tea ceremony. The ceremony could, in principle, take 4 minutes. You could boil water, add tea, pour it, drink it. But the ceremony takes hours, not because the tea requires hours, but because the deliberate slowing of each gesture transforms the act of drinking tea from a transaction into an experience. The tea is the same, the water is the same. The deliberation is what makes it meaningful. Spending slowly looks like this. When you want to buy something that is not an immediate necessity, you wait. The Japanese practice of 72 hours, known informally in frugal Japanese households as the Sanju Nikki Jikan rule, asks you to wait 72 hours before making any non-essential purchase. Not to punish yourself, not because the thing is wrong to buy, but to allow the space between desire and decision to reveal what the desire actually is. Because here's the thing, many purchases held for 72 hours reveal themselves to be something other than what they first appeared. The item you were convinced you needed on a Tuesday afternoon often looks entirely different on a Friday morning. Not always. Some purchases survive the wait and arrive at decision as genuine, considered choices. Those are the purchases that feel good long after the excitement of acquisition has faded. What all of this has in common, the daily glance, the first placement, the empty space, the watching, the slow spending, is a quality of presence, a refusal to let money happen to you, a decision to be awake inside your financial life rather than managing it from a distance. Try this. The next time you want to buy something that costs more than $30 and isn't a necessity, write it down on a piece of paper with today's date. Come back to it in 72 hours, then decide. Notice how many things you still want and how many quietly dissolve. The sixth and final habit is one that ties all the others together, and it is the one most likely to be overlooked because it looks, at first, like it has nothing to do with money at all. It is called furikaeri, which means looking back or reflection. And in Japanese professional and personal culture, it is considered one of the most important practices a person can develop. Furikaeri is the deliberate act of reviewing not just what happened, but why, and what you want to do differently as a result. It is practiced in Japanese schools, where students are asked to reflect on their learning at the end of each week. It is practiced in Japanese companies, where teams conduct structured reviews not to assign blame, but to extract wisdom. And it is practiced by Japanese households, quietly, at the end of each month, when the kakeibo asks 4 questions that have remained essentially unchanged for over a century. Those 4 questions are: how much money did I make this month? How much did I spend? How much did I save? How can I improve? Not, why did I fail? Not, what did I do wrong? Not, why am I like this? How can I improve? The difference in those questions is everything. Most of us, when we review our finances at the end of a bad month, do so in the spirit of judgment. We look at what went wrong and we assign meaning to it. Meaning about our character, our discipline, our worthiness. And that meaning makes the next month harder because we approach it already burdened by the story we've told ourselves about the last one. Furikaeri refuses that story. It holds the budget lightly, as information, not verdict. This month happened. Here is what it looked like. What, specifically and practically, can be different next time? Not everything. One thing. The smallest, most actionable one thing. Think about a garden journal, the kind that serious gardeners keep, recording what was planted when, what grew, what didn't, what the weather was like, what they'd do differently next season. A good gardener doesn't look at a plant that didn't thrive and conclude that they are a bad person. They conclude that this particular plant needed more water, or more shade, or a different position in the garden. The information serves the next attempt, without the weight of self-condemnation. Your monthly budget review is a garden journal entry. What grew this month? What didn't? What does next month's garden need that this month's didn't have? When furikaeri is practiced with that quality of curiosity, without judgment, without shame, without the need to have gotten it right, the monthly review becomes something you actually look forward to. Not because everything always goes perfectly, because you have learned to find the review genuinely interesting. Your own financial life, observed with curiosity rather than dread, is actually a fascinating story, full of patterns and surprises and information that can only help you if you're willing to look. The kakeibo suggests that this reflection happens at the end of each month and also at the beginning of the next, so that the looking back and the looking forward happen in the same quiet sitting. The month closes, the lessons settle, and the new month opens with a specific, small intention. One thing to do differently. Not 10, 1. Try this. At the end of this month, mark it in your calendar now. Sit with your finances for 20 minutes and ask only one question. What is one specific thing that would have made this month feel more financially peaceful? Not what you should have done, what would have helped. Then make that one thing the only financial commitment you carry into next month. 6 habits. And what all 6 of them share, the daily glance, the first placement, the deliberate empty space, the weekly watching, the slow spending, the monthly reflection, is something the Japanese call seitan. It is one of the 5 principles of the famous 5S framework developed in Japanese manufacturing, and it means simply a place for everything and everything in its place. Seitan applied to a budget means that money is not floating. It is not mysterious or unpredictable or constantly surprising you in ways that create anxiety. It is known. It is placed. It is watched. It is spent with care. It is reflected upon honestly. A clean budget is not a perfect budget. It is not a budget that never varies or never surprises or never faces a difficult month. A clean budget is one that is inhabited by your attention, your intention, and your gentle, consistent practice. The Japanese have understood for centuries something that modern financial culture still hasn't fully accepted, that the goal of managing money is not to become someone who doesn't have money problems. It is to become someone who has a peaceful relationship with money, whatever the amount, whatever the season, whatever the circumstances. Peace is not the reward at the end of the work. It is the quality of the work itself. And 6 habits, practiced with patience and without self-judgment, is enough to begin building that peace. Not all at once, not perfectly. Kaizen, the smallest possible improvement, sustained over time, always gets there. One habit, then another, then the one after that. That is how a budget becomes not a system you maintain, but a practice you live. And if that question is still settling, which of these 6 habits has the budget of your life been missing? Carry it with you this week, not as pressure, as curiosity. If this way of thinking about money feels different from everything else you've tried, quieter, more human, more honest, this channel exists for exactly that reason. Every video here is an exploration of the Japanese philosophies and habits that make financial peace genuinely possible, without the shame, without the hustle, and without the promise of a transformation that happens overnight. Subscribe if this is the kind of conversation you want to keep having. There is much more here waiting for you.